I thought, you missed the point. So, the moral is that it's really easy to objectify even me. I'm going to presume for a second that I'm sort of well-respected in the community and generally well thought of. And if it's not true, don't tell me till afterwards, because it ruins the whole point. But just go with it for now. So if it's easy to treat me as if I'm an object, and the only thing that we're going to talk about is my shoes, then fine. I will take off my shoes so that you can hear me and understand what I have to say. And please, I hope you will really enjoy this, because it's very, very... So here they are. These are my shoes. Okay, I wear them all the time. And if they get in the way of my message being heard, I'm putting them down and readjusting the microphone. So now let's talk about human rights. This weekend is Rabbi for Human Rights Shabbat. Tonight, congregations all across America are thinking, learning, praying, and acting to create a world with increased human rights for all, as Rabbi Berg was explaining earlier. Down the hallway, we've got Maxi Merry Mitzvah. What an absolute moment of celebrating of human rights, where our teenagers from this congregation are engaging with a community that is so often dismissed and diminished as equals and as partners in this world. May we all be inspired and learn from their model. For us here in the greater Atlanta community, we've been focusing on anti-child trafficking, and so tonight we'll talk about the demand side for child prostitutes. If human trafficking tramples on the basic human rights of the victims, the prostitutes themselves, then let's consider the buyers, the Johns, as the perpetrator of this denial of rights. Now, earlier this week, I was at a meeting with the Department of Homeland Security regarding a faith-based anti-child trafficking pilot program they want to run here in Atlanta. Sitting in a small conference room, I said something about the Johns, and Lisa Williams, the founder of Living Waters for Girls, and the national go-to person for victim services, interrupted me and said, you know, Rabbi, we don't have to give these monsters such a nice name like John, and particularly if your name is John, I bet you'll appreciate this. Well, what do we call him instead? I asked her. Rapist. And after she paused a moment, she then, and let that settle, she said, you can also call them sexual predators as well. But let's not be gentle about what it is they do. Their demand destroys people, especially children. So who are these predators? As Rabbi Berg and I have talked about many times from this bima and from the main sanctuary, the vast majority of the buyers are white middle and upper middle class men, usually married, usually with children. They look like us. They are us. And if not the people in this room, then our friends, our family, our peers. And it's painful. It's horrific to consider, but it's a truth that we must confront in order to fix the brokenness. All things are connected, and we live in a broken world. Then we, too, are broken people. And as we repair one another, as we repair one, we repair the other. This is a sacred task, and this is our sacred task. It is frightening and powerful and ugly, but that is no reason to ignore it. If anything, the horrors of child trafficking in our state make it all the more important for us as Jewish people to stand against demand. Remember, we were once slaves in Egypt, and we were redeemed. And for all eternity, it is our calling to free others from slavery. The approach is simple. Reduce the demand leads to the reducing of the supply. Now, according to Project Hope International's documentary, Demand, in this market, human beings are the products in demand. This so-called product is provided to the buyer in every variety and at every opportunity. These are people we are talking about. But how does it happen? Well, it's actually a simple process of acculturation, and we are all part of it. When we're brought up, often our first exposure to explicit material is through TV shows, video games, magazine covers in the supermarket, and the internet. And nothing ever tells us that what we're seeing is bad. People are just objectified everywhere. You can go online and see all kinds of pornography. Images, they're just images. But your mind looks for more and more excitement. And so then you move to the next level and you try something else, like a video. And let's say you have a partner, and there are some things you might want to try out. But you're uncomfortable to do these things with your partner because you would never treat your partner like that. It's something you saw somewhere. And so you think, I will go do this with someone else, who becomes your object. What you see is what you know, and then you have to do more to get the same experience. And this is where visualization brings about actualization. This is where the adult entertainment industry lures the buyer into the human trafficking market. Basically, it's a cultural process. We dehumanize people, and we're all subject to it all the time. Looking even at our Torah portion this week by Shev, Joseph's brothers see him as a pest, an animal who they throw into a pit for trapping like a wild beast, as he himself is just an animal. And when a caravan comes along, Joseph is easy to sell. He is no longer a person to them, but rather simply property. We too participate in the objectification of other human beings all the time, and we don't mean it. When we don't say hello to somebody we pass on the street or even in the foyer of the synagogue, when we let somebody be invisible, they become just an object. When we go to a restaurant or to the bank teller and we don't pause and ask, how are you today? We objectify those around us. And when we go to the grocery store and buy Betty Crocker cake mix, because we've learned through TV commercials and print ads that if you buy the product, you will be as perfect and well put together as Betty Crocker, we are objectifying those around us as well. Even our biblical texts around the laws of slavery are clear. When you purchase a slave, you own their labor, not their humanity. Slaves have rights, such as physical safety, basic food and shelter, and the right to be free, because these slaves are, after all, people and not property. Our 19th century scholar Martin Buber referred to this as the I-it relationship. Buber taught that when we engage with another for merely transactional purposes, we treat that person like an it, an object, a thing. But when we engage with another person for relational purposes, when we treat them like a thou, an equal, a human being, then we go through the world engaging in I-thou connections instead of I-it. When we do that, we invoke the presence of the sacred, the divine, the eternal. And quite frankly, that sounds a lot better to me. In those moments, we come closer to one another and closer to God. The seemingly innocent act of watching racy TV shows and movies, playing violent video games, and commenting on someone's appearance to the exclusion of their content takes us further from the holy and further from one another. So I return again to my shoes. Okay, it's by the second high shoe. So how do we take a stand against demand? We put our tall shoes on, first of all. We celebrate the passage of today's Bipartisan Child Protection Act, which was signed into law in the President's office earlier this afternoon. It said that pornography is unacceptable not because of what it is, but because of what it inspires and encourages us to do, and that it takes away the dignity and the human rights of others for our own personal gratification. That's a big win. I hope after tonight that you will talk about my shoes, and that you will tell these stories as cautionary tales, that it is easy, so easy, to treat people like things. And from there, you will look at the world differently. You will say to your children and to those around you, you see that picture of a half-dressed person on the cover of that magazine? It's not okay. Those images, You see that TV show depicting violence and abuse? That's not okay. Those images are powerful, but they are not real. And they are not who we are. And they are not who we aspire to be. On this National Human Rights Shabbat, let us demand from ourselves first and foremost that each of us regard and hold sacred the basic human rights of all people. That we will act to always treat each other as people, not property, no matter how brief or insignificant the exchange. Today we stand against the demand in our community for the buying and selling of people for sexual services by knowing that a John is not an innocent bystander, but a sexual predator, and to never judge a person by their footwear. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.